My name is Emily Carter, and a month ago my parents looked me in the eye and said words I'll never forget: stop being selfish. That's a free house. Either sell it to your brother, or you're not our child anymore. Have you ever heard something so cruel that it almost makes you laugh? They thought they could corner me, bully me into giving up the only thing my grandmother ever left me, one place that actually felt like home. But instead of arguing, I played my move in silence. 3 days before their ambush, before they even showed up with a realtor to handle the sale, I had already signed the papers. The house was gone, sold to someone they would never have seen coming. So when the day arrived, when they marched up the driveway ready to strip me of everything, what they found inside left them screaming. Growing up in the Carter household should have meant something. I was the firstborn, the daughter who paved the way, the one who was supposed to be an example. But in my family, birth order never mattered. What mattered was who could charm their way into my parents' hearts. And in our home, that crown belonged to my younger brother, Ryan. While I woke up at 6 a.m. every morning to catch the bus to public school, Ryan was chauffeured to Westwood Academy, a private institution with tuition that cost more than most families' annual income. Emily's independent, my mom would explain to neighbors, as if independence was a gift. What she really meant was, Emily doesn't need what Ryan needs. Ryan deserves more. I remember sitting at the kitchen table when I was 11, clutching a report card filled with straight A's. I slid it across to Dad, hoping for some spark of pride. He scanned it for 2 seconds before asking, "Did you see Ryan's drawing? His art teacher says he's the most talented in the class." My achievement was expected. Ryan's every scribble was a miracle. It wasn't just school. Ryan had violin tutors, soccer coaches, summer camps in Europe. When I begged to join the debate team, which cost $200, Dad sighed and said, "We need to prioritize spending." That same week, Ryan got a brand new gaming console and a $2,000 laptop. I don't think they realized how obvious it was. Every family picture told the story. Ryan front and center, Mom and Dad beaming at him, and me slightly to the side, smiling politely, as though I were a guest in my own family. The only person who really noticed was my grandmother, Margaret. While my parents were busy clapping at Ryan's soccer games or bragging about his art projects, Grandma would quietly slip into my room. She smelled of lavender and always carried a little tin of shortbread cookies. "How's my brilliant girl?" she'd ask, settling down to listen about my science projects or the books I was devouring from the library. One night, when I was 16, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My parents had skipped my National Honor Society induction to take Ryan to a weekend soccer tournament. I sat on my bed, tears staining the pillow, and asked her the question I'd been too scared to say out loud: why do they love him more? She pulled me close, her perfume wrapping around me like armor. "They don't love him more, sweetheart. They love themselves more. And Ryan reflects who they wish they were: talented, charming, adored. You reflect who they actually are: hardworking, practical, grounded. And that terrifies them." Those words changed everything. I clung to them like a lifeline. Because no matter how many times I was overlooked, ignored, or dismissed, Grandma reminded me that I mattered. By the time Ryan was coasting through college, funded by Mom and Dad's endless bank transfers, I was working 3 jobs to put myself through state school. While he explored his passions, changing majors 6 times, I studied accounting, boring but practical, and graduated with honors. The day I got my CPA license, Grandma was the only one who showed up to celebrate. My parents were in Cabo, raising champagne glasses at Ryan's engagement party. An engagement, by the way, that lasted less than 4 months. You'd think after all these years I would have gotten used to being invisible. But some moments cut deeper, leaving scars that never fade. My 25th birthday came and went with silence from my parents. No call. No card. No dinner. Instead, Mom posted a photo of her and Ryan shopping at Nordstrom, so blessed to spend the day with my baby boy. That was the moment I knew my place. I was the backup plan, the background character, the reliable one who didn't need applause. And Ryan? He was the golden child, destined to have everything handed to him even if it came from my hands. When Grandma Margaret passed away, it felt like the last piece of safety in my life had disappeared. She had been my anchor, the one person who saw me, truly saw me, in a family that treated me like an afterthought. Losing her was like losing the only person who believed I was enough. The funeral was as hollow as you'd expect. My parents cried loud enough for the neighbors to hear, while Ryan acted like a grieving saint, arms wrapped around Mom, head bowed just so. It was a performance. They were all performing. But me? I stood by the casket in silence, clutching the rosary Grandma always kept by her bedside. My grief wasn't for show. It was raw, sharp, cutting. A week later, I got a call from Attorney Collins, Grandma's lawyer. His voice was clipped and professional. "Emily, your grandmother's will is ready for reading. We'd like you present." Walking into that office, I already knew the script. My parents would get everything, and Ryan would get the spotlight. I'd get a token, maybe her recipe box or a piece of jewelry, something sentimental but not substantial. That's how it had always been. But life, sometimes, doesn't follow the script. When Attorney Collins opened the folder and spoke the words, I almost didn't hear them. "To my granddaughter Emily Carter, I leave the Maplewood property in full, to be hers alone, free of encumbrances." The Maplewood property. Grandma's house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, wraparound porch, a garden that bloomed every spring. The house where I'd spent summers baking pies with her, winters wrapped in quilts by the fireplace, evenings in the garden listening to her stories. It wasn't just a house. It was my childhood, my sanctuary, my one true home. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's smile froze mid-performance. My father blinked as if he hadn't heard correctly. Ryan's jaw literally dropped. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from smiling. "Excuse me," Dad said finally, his voice hard. "Did you say Emily?" Attorney Collins nodded, flipping the page. "Emily Carter is the sole beneficiary of the Maplewood property." This was Mrs. Margaret's explicit instruction. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "But that house is family property." "No," Collins corrected gently. "It belonged to your mother. She left it to Emily. Her wishes are clear." I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. For once, someone had chosen me. Afterward, while Mom and Dad stormed out muttering about contesting and unfair manipulation, I stayed behind, stunned. Collins looked at me kindly. "Your grandmother was very deliberate, Emily. She wanted to ensure you had security. She told me, and I quote, 'Emily has always given more than she's received. It's time she has something no one can take from her.'" I pressed my hand to my mouth. Grandma had thought this through. She knew exactly what my parents would try to do, and she made sure they couldn't. Driving to Maplewood later that afternoon, I pulled into the gravel driveway and just sat there. The garden was overgrown, the shutters needed paint, but to me it was perfect. I walked through each room slowly, letting the memories wash over me. The kitchen where we rolled out pie dough. The back porch where she told me I was stronger than I knew. The tiny study where she kept her journals, filled with notes about life, resilience, and hope. This house wasn't just worth money, it was worth freedom. It was worth dignity. It meant no more begging landlords to fix leaky pipes, no more rent hikes every 6 months, no more roommates who treated the kitchen like a landfill. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. But deep down, I knew the storm was coming. My parents and Ryan weren't going to let me keep this without a fight. In the Carter family, nothing I owned was ever truly mine. They always found a way to twist, to demand, to take. So as I stood in Grandma's garden, staring at the roses she planted decades ago, I whispered to myself, not this time. It didn't even take 3 days before the phone calls started. The first one came at 6 in the morning. My phone buzzed, and when I answered, my mother's voice came through sweet as honey, sweeter than I'd heard in years. "Emily, sweetheart," she began, "we need to talk about Grandma's house. It's a big responsibility, maybe too big for you alone. Your brother could help. Why don't you sell it to him?" I tightened my grip on the phone. "It's not too big for me, Mom. I can handle it." Her tone sharpened instantly. "Don't be selfish. That's a free house. Ryan needs it more than you do. You already have a place to live. A cramped apartment with black mold and a landlord who considered hot water optional. That was my place to live." But sure, in her mind, I was already set. 2 hours later, my father called. No sweetness in his voice, only command. "Emily, listen carefully. Either you sell the house to your brother, or you're not our daughter anymore. Do you understand me? If you refuse, you're out of this family." I didn't answer right away. He'd used that tone all my life, the one that shut down arguments before they started. But I was 32 now, not 16. "I heard you," I said finally, and hung up. That night, Ryan called. Unlike our parents, he tried the guilt route. His voice broke as he spoke. I'm not saying you should just give me the house, but come on. Be fair. We could share. Or you sell, and we split it. That would be the right thing to do." "The right thing?" I echoed. Funny how the right thing always means I lose something and you gain. He sighed dramatically. "You don't get it. I'm trying to build a future. I can't rent forever. How am I supposed to start a family without a house?" I bit my tongue before reminding him that he was still single, cycling through girlfriends faster than car leases. Instead, I said, "That's not my problem." After that, the floodgates opened. Texts at dawn, "Family means sharing, Emily." Calls at midnight, "Grandma would be disappointed in your greed." Voicemails dripping with guilt, "Your sister sorry, your brother needs this more than you. You're strong. You'll be fine." It didn't stop there. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years appeared out of nowhere. Aunt Carol left a long message about thinking of what's best for everyone. Uncle Frank sent an email about how property disputes ruin families. My cousins spammed the group chat with thinly veiled jabs, "Don't let material things destroy family bonds." I knew exactly what had happened. Mom had handed out a script, and everyone was playing their part. The words that stung the most came late one night, when my father sent a final text, "Sell the house or you're no longer welcome in this family. Your choice." I stared at the glowing screen in the dark. No longer welcome. As if I'd ever been truly welcome. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But instead, I remembered Grandma's words, whispered years ago in the quiet safety of her kitchen, "They'd sell your shadow if Ryan needed the money." She'd known this was coming. She'd seen it before I did. And in that moment, I made a decision. They could call me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. They could send an army of relatives to wear me down. They could threaten to cut me off, to disown me, to erase me from the family tree. But this time, I wouldn't bend. This house wasn't just a roof over my head. It was a symbol. It was proof that someone in my life had valued me enough to give me something permanent, something untouchable. Or at least, it was supposed to be untouchable. The Carters didn't hear "no" to them. No was just the opening round of negotiation. I put my phone down, heart racing, mind buzzing. The storm was here, and it was only getting stronger. But somewhere deep inside, past the fear and exhaustion, something steadier was taking root. Defiance. Not this time. I was at my desk late one Thursday, drowning in spreadsheets, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Emily, this is Daniel Brooks. I heard you might be selling a property on Maplewood. I'm very interested. Can we talk? For a second, I just stared at the screen. Daniel Brooks. The CEO of Horizon Tech. My brother Ryan's boss. The universe had to be playing a joke. I remembered meeting Daniel years ago at a professional networking event. He wasn't flashy like most executives, he asked thoughtful questions, listened, and even joked about how accountants like me saw the world in black and white numbers that never lie. He had left an impression, one of the rare men who didn't dismiss me because I wasn't dazzling or charming like Ryan. And now he wanted Grandma's house. I reread Dad's ultimatum, sell the house to your brother or you're not our daughter anymore. Then I looked back at Daniel's message. For the first time in weeks, a smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. Hi Daniel, I typed carefully. Yes, I might be selling. But it needs to be confidential. His reply came within seconds, understood. I can meet tonight. And Emily, I remember how they treated you in college. This time, you call the shots. That last sentence made my chest tighten. Somebody remembered. Somebody knew. We met at a cafe near downtown. Daniel arrived in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, but his smile was warm, familiar. He didn't waste time. I've been looking for property in that neighborhood for months, he said, sipping his coffee. It's close to our offices, perfect for a satellite workspace. Your grandmother's house is ideal. I studied him. Why me? Why this house? He shrugged lightly. Because it's available, and because I know you. I trust you. Then his voice dropped. And I also know what your family is trying to do. Ryan mentioned it at the office. He said your parents were pressuring you. He laughed about how you'd come around eventually. The words made my blood boil, but Daniel's calm steadied me. So, he continued, sliding a folder across the table, here's my offer, $800,000. $20,000 above market value. All cash. We can close in 3 days. My eyes widened. Why so much? Because I want the property, he said simply. And because you deserve to win, Emily. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought of every message, every voicemail, every threat from my parents. I thought of Ryan's smug assurance that I'd eventually hand everything over. I thought of Grandma's whisper, don't let them take what's yours. I reached for the pen. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Let's do it. Daniel nodded once. I'll have my attorneys coordinate with yours. But Emily, he leaned forward, eyes locking on mine. This stays between us until the ink is dry. No one can know. Agreed? Agreed, I said. The next 3 days were a blur. Emails, signatures, wires. My lawyer double-checked every line of the contract. By Monday, it was done. Grandma's house legally belonged to Daniel Brooks and his company. But here's the part my parents would never see coming, the lease agreement. Daniel had insisted on it. You belong in that house, Emily, he told me. It's your home. I'll make it a dual-use property. Office space downstairs, tenant upstairs. You'll have the top floor at below-market rent. 10 years, locked in. And I'll add a clause: if I ever sell, you get first right to buy it back at the original price. I stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do that for me? His smile was gentle. Because I don't like bullies. And because I know you're stronger than you think. That night, I walked through the garden, the papers in my hand, the ink still fresh. For the first time since Grandma died, I felt like I could breathe again. My parents thought they'd cornered me. They thought they'd left me no choice. But I had just made the boldest choice of my life. When they came charging in with their realtor and their demands, they wouldn't find a powerless daughter waiting to surrender. They'd find a locked door, a signed contract, and a CEO who had already beaten them at their own game. And I couldn't wait to watch their faces when they realized it. The Carter family had never been subtle about their ambushes, but this time, they came prepared for war. Attorney Collins had barely finished greeting me when the conference room door opened, and my parents swept in like prosecutors entering a courtroom. Mom's perfume was sharp, cloying, almost weaponized. Dad's jaw was set like granite. And Ryan trailed behind them, face already flushed, eyes red as if he'd been practicing tears in the car mirror. They weren't alone. A woman in a scarlet blazer followed them, dropping a stack of glossy folders onto the mahogany table. Mom introduced her with theatrical pride. "This is Mrs. Patterson," she announced. "The realtor we've hired. She already has buyers lined up. Cash offers. We can close fast." Attorney Collins frowned. This meeting was not scheduled for property negotiations. It was to discuss the estate's execution. Dad waved a hand dismissively. "We're saving everyone time. No reason to drag this out." I sat there, hands folded in my lap, keeping my expression neutral. Inside, my heart was racing. Daniel's text from the night before still burned in my mind, contract finalized. "Ready when you are." But I said nothing. "Not yet. Emily," Mom began sweetly, "your brother needs this house. You've always been the strong one, the independent one. You don't need all this space. Ryan's future depends on it." Ryan sniffled right on cue. "I can't rent forever, Em. I'm ready to start a family. Don't you want me to have that chance?" I almost laughed. His longest relationship had lasted 6 months. But I stayed quiet. "Let's be practical," Dad said firmly, sliding the realtor's papers toward me. "If we sell now, everyone wins. You'll get your share, Ryan will finally have a home, and the family will stay united." I lifted the papers with deliberate slowness, scanning them without really seeing. My pulse thundered in my ears. "This is generous, Mrs. Patterson added, tapping a manicured nail against the figures. "Above market value, split evenly between you and your brother. Fair, don't you think?" "Except," Attorney Collins interjected calmly, "though we'll left the property solely to Emily. She is under no obligation to sell, share, or divide the proceeds." Mom's face hardened. "That's a technicality. Family shares. Like you shared tuition?" I asked quietly. My voice surprised even Mestetti, sharp. "Like you shared attention at birthdays? Like you shared support when I worked 3 jobs to get through college?" Dad slammed his palm on the table. "Don't start with old grudges. This is about fairness, about doing what's right." "No," I said evenly. "This is about control." The room fell silent. Ryan shifted in his seat, sniffling again. "Why are you being so cold, Em? Grandma loved us both. You spent all that time with her, filling her head with stories, turning her against me. That's why she gave you the house." My nails dug into my palm, but I kept my composure. "Never let them see your next move," Grandma had taught me over chessboards. "Play the long game." "I didn't turn her against anyone," I replied. She saw the truth. "Lies," Mom snapped. "You poisoned her mind. You're not thinking clearly now either. We're your parents, Emily. We decide what's best for the family." "No," Attorney Collins cut in firmly. "Emily is 32 years old. And the sole legal owner of the property. The will is crystal clear. Dad leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. Listen to me, Emily. Either you sign these papers, or you're no longer welcome in this family. No holidays. No birthdays. No future grandchildren. Nothing. The ultimatum hung heavy in the air. Ryan dabbed his eyes with a tissue. Don't do this, Em. Don't ruin the family. Just sell the house. I looked at each of the me parents, puffed up with entitlement, my brother, pathetic in his fake tears, the realtor, eager for her commission, and my attorney, tight-lipped but steady at my side. And in my pocket, my phone buzzed once. A single text from Daniel. On my way. 15 minutes. I exhaled slowly. The storm was building. They thought I was cornered, that I'd finally cave. But what they didn't know was that the game was already over. Fine, I said at last, folding the papers neatly and setting them down. You want the house? Let's go see it. Confusion rippled across their faces. Dad narrowed his eyes. What are you playing at? No games, I said, standing up, sliding my chair back with calm finality. If you're so desperate to take it from me, you should see what you're fighting for. I walked to the door, heart pounding but voice steady. Behind me, chairs scraped and murmurs rose as they scrambled to follow. The trap was set. And soon, they'd step right into it. The drive to Maplewood felt like a funeral procession. I led in my old sedan, while behind me my parents, Ryan, and Mrs. Patterson crammed into Dad's SUV, headlights glaring like a predator's eyes. Attorney Collins followed in her Lexus, her expression tight through the windshield. As I turned onto Maplewood Lane, my chest tightened. There it was, the white Victorian with its wraparound porch and wild rose bushes. Grandma's house. My house. Or at least, it had been 3 days ago. And in the driveway, gleaming like a warning flare, was a white Tesla Model S. I parked at the curb and got out slowly, watching the others pile out of their car. Mom squinted. Whose car is that? Ryan froze. His face drained of color. His voice came out as a whisper. That's Daniel Brooks's car. My CEO. Dad frowned, confused. Your boss. What the hell would he be doing here? I just walked toward the porch, keys in hand though they no longer fit the locks. Emily, Dad barked. What's going on? Why don't we find out? I said calmly. Before I could knock, the door swung open. And there he was, Daniel Brooks. Casual Saturday attire, but still radiating authority. Emily, he greeted warmly, then glanced at the stunned faces behind me. Perfect timing. The silence that followed was electric. Mrs. Patterson, the realtor, recovered first. She thrust out her hand eagerly. Mr. Brooks, hello. I understand you're interested in the property. I can get you. I'm not interested, Daniel interrupted smoothly. I'm the owner. The words landed like a grenade. Dad's face turned purple. Impossible. This house belongs to Emily. Belonged, Attorney Collins corrected softly. Past tense. Mom gasped. You sold it? You sold it without telling us? I met her eyes evenly. 3 days ago. Sale finalized, recorded with the county. Ryan's voice cracked. To my boss. You sold Grandma's house to my boss. Technically, Daniel said, to my company. But yes. Mom's voice rose to a shriek. You can't do this. We're your family. Actually, Daniel replied calmly, she had every right to. It was her property. Her decision. Mrs. Patterson sputtered. But I had buyer's cash offers. Bit late for that, Daniel said, almost amused. Dad jabbed a finger at me. This is fraud. Manipulation. You took advantage of her. Daniel chuckled, low and dangerous. Mr. Carter, I paid $800,000 for this property. $20,000 above asking. If anyone got taken advantage of, it's me. He glanced around. But I wanted this specific house. This location is perfect for our new satellite office. Ryan staggered back. Satellite office? Daniel's eyes landed on him. Yes, Ryan. For your department. Marketing. You'll be working here starting Monday. The sound Ryan made was halfway between a groan and a sob. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, Daniel said smoothly. Mom rushed forward, grabbing Ryan's arm. You can't do this to him. He deserves that house. He needs it. And what about Emily? Daniel asked, his tone deceptively mild. Did she not deserve it? Did she not need it? Funny how need always seems to apply to one child in your family. The neighbors were gathering now, drifting toward the sidewalk like moths to flame. Mrs. Kim stood with her phone raised, clearly recording. Mr. Peterson leaned on his fence, grinning like it was the best entertainment he'd had in years. Dad turned back to me, eyes blazing. You planned this. You humiliated us on purpose. I planned to protect myself, I said. My voice didn't shake. For once in my life, I chose me. You selfish little, Mom lunged toward me, but Attorney Collins stepped between us. Careful, Mrs. Carter. Assaulting your daughter in front of witnesses won't help your case. Case? Mom spat. We'll contest this sale. Undue influence. Fraud. Something. On what grounds? Collins asked coolly. That Emily sold her legal property to a willing buyer for above market value? Everything is documented. Every signature notarized. Ryan collapsed onto the porch steps, head in his hands. This is my career, my future. You've ruined me, Em. I looked down at him, remembering every smug smile, every careless laugh about how I'd come around eventually. I didn't ruin you, I said softly. You did that all on your own. Daniel's voice cut through the tension. For the record, Emily will be residing upstairs. The lease agreement is ironclad. She'll be our tenant for the next 10 years at below market rent. She also holds right of first refusal if we ever sell. So yes, she'll still live here. And Ryan, you'll still work here. Ryan let out a strangled sound. No. No, I won't. That's your choice, Daniel said evenly. But refusing a reasonable work assignment is insubordination. HR can discuss your exit package if you prefer. The threat was subtle but devastating. Ryan's eyes darted to Mom, then Dad, searching for rescue. None came. I turned to face them all, my voice steady now, stronger than it had ever been. For 32 years, everything has been about Ryan. His education. His hobbies. His dreams. Even his failures, you paid to fix them all. When was it ever about me? When did I ever get to need something? Dad growled, you never needed anything. You were always independent, strong. I stepped closer, my words cutting. I wasn't independent by choice. I was independent because you never offered. You left me no other option. The crowd of neighbors murmured, some nodding, some whispering. Cameras caught every word. Finally, Daniel pulled out his phone. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, unless Emily invites you in, you're trespassing. Shall I call the police? You wouldn't dare, Dad hissed. Daniel's thumb hovered over the screen. Try me. For the first time that day, Dad faltered. Mom clutched Ryan's arm, fury twisting her face. You've ruined this family, Emily. Are you happy now? I met her eyes. I'm not ruined. I'm free. The words settled over the porch like a final verdict. Behind me, movers began unloading office furniture, desks, chairs, a conference table filing into the front parlor. Melissa's old reading room, Grandma's sanctuary, was transforming into Horizon Tech's new creative hub. Ryan let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob. Mom turned her fury on me once more, but Dad pulled her back toward the car. We're leaving, he muttered. As they retreated, Mrs. Kim called out from across the street. Margaret would be proud of you, Emily. That stopped me cold. Proud. The word I had chased my whole life. And in that moment, watching my family stumble away, powerless for once, I knew, Grandma had been right. The best revenge wasn't anger. It was a contract signed in ink they couldn't erase. The next few days felt like the aftermath of a storm. Not the quiet kind, but the strange, unsettled silence that comes when everyone is pretending the world hasn't been torn apart. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. By Sunday afternoon, I was getting nods of approval at the grocery store, quiet congratulations from people who had watched me grow up and always wondered how I'd survived being the other Carter child. Mrs. Kim even slipped a note into my mailbox. Your grandmother would be so proud. She told us often that you were the strong one. Meanwhile, my parents went into full damage control. Mom plastered Facebook with posts dripping in martyrdom. When money matters more than family, some daughters lose their way. Dad raged in long texts about how I'd publicly humiliated them. Ryan, however, went silent. But silence didn't mean surrender. Monday morning, I watched from my upstairs window as Ryan pulled into the driveway at 8:58 a.m. Sharp. He didn't get out of his car right away. He sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring up at the house like it was a monster about to swallow him whole. Finally, with visible reluctance, he climbed out, adjusted his tie, and walked toward the porch. I couldn't resist. I leaned out the window and waved. His face crumpled in fury. He turned away quickly, but not before I caught the muttered words, "This is hell." Downstairs, the movers had transformed the parlor and dining room into sleek workspaces, whiteboards on the walls, ergonomic chairs, rows of gleaming monitors. Horizon Tech's marketing department filed in one by one, their chatter filling the house where Grandma once served tea and pie. I overheard Daniel's voice during their first team meeting. Welcome to your new collaborative space. Remember, professionalism is everything. And respect for our tenant upstairs is non-negotiable. Tenant. That was me. And Ryan had no choice but to nod along. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, my parents insisted Ryan deserved more because he was fragile, delicate, incapable of standing on his own. And now, here he was, forced to work every day in the house he had tried to steal, while I lived peacefully upstairs. The tension grew thick almost immediately. He avoided eye contact, refused to acknowledge me in the hall, and once, when we both reached for the same doorknob to the kitchen, he actually flinched. At night, I could hear him through the old vents, venting to coworkers. It's psychological torture, he hissed one evening. How am I supposed to focus when she's up there? My sister, the thief. The response from his team was brutal in its honesty. Didn't she inherit it? How is she a thief if it was hers? I almost laughed out loud, pressing a pillow over my face to muffle the sound. My parents weren't taking it well either. They showed up unannounced on Wednesday, pounding on the door until Daniel himself came down to greet them. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, he said smoothly. You're trespassing again. Unless Emily invites you in, you'll need to leave. Mom's shriek echoed down the street. You stole our son's future. No, Daniel replied calmly. Your daughter secured hers. The neighbors had gathered again, phones out, recording. My parents left in a storm of curses and threats, but I noticed something different this time. There was no confidence in their voices anymore. Just desperation. And Ryan? He was unraveling. By the second week, he looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes. Jennifer Wu, his department head, pulled me aside in the garden one afternoon. Off the record, she said softly, your brother's struggling. His work is well, let's just say he's not keeping up. I only nodded. It wasn't my responsibility anymore. Every day that passed, the balance shifted. For once, I wasn't the invisible one. I wasn't the family doormat. I was the woman upstairs in the house Grandma had given meth house they thought they could strip away. And Ryan? He was trapped in the very walls he tried to claim, forced to face me, day after day, reminder after reminder, that this time, he hadn't won. The storm wasn't over. But for the first time in my life, I was standing on solid ground. By the end of the third month, everything had changed. Ryan's daily performance at Horizon Tech had collapsed. His once boastful attitude was gone, replaced with nervous silence in meetings and half-finished presentations. I heard the whispers through the vents, coworkers frustrated, supervisors unimpressed. Finally, Jennifer Wu herself came up to the garden one evening while I was watering the roses. Emily, she said gently, I wanted you to hear this from me before you hear it from anyone else. Ryan's being let go. His work hasn't met expectations for a long time. The situation with the office space didn't help, but the truth is, he's been coasting for years. We can't carry him anymore. I nodded slowly. It wasn't triumph I felt, but something heavier. Pity, maybe. Or closure. Thank you for telling me. That night, my phone rang. Mom's number flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was ice. Your brother lost his job today. And it's your fault. I sat on the edge of Grandma's bed, staring at the familiar floral wallpaper. No, Mom. His performance was his responsibility. You destroyed him, she snapped. If you'd just done the right thing, if you'd sold him the house like we asked, none of this would have happened. The right thing for who? I asked quietly. For Ryan. For you. When was it ever the right thing for me? Silence. Then she delivered the final blow, you're not my daughter anymore. The line went dead. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I opened the old cedar chest at the foot of Grandma's bed, one I'd never bothered to explore fully. Inside, wrapped in lavender-scented paper, were letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened the first. My dearest Emily. I know how they treat you. I know the way they look past you, the way they make you feel invisible. But I see you. You are the strongest of us. One day, they will try to take everything from you. When that day comes, don't bend. Don't apologize. Stand tall. And remember, sometimes love means giving, but sometimes love means saying no. Tears blurred the ink. She had known. She had planned for this moment, long before I could imagine it. I read letter after letter into the night. Words of encouragement, of warning, of faith. By the time I finished, I didn't feel alone anymore. Weeks passed. Horizon Tech eventually moved its satellite office to a commercial building downtown. Daniel had only needed Maplewood temporarily, to make a point and to protect me. But the lease he'd signed was still binding. I remained in the house at a rate so low it felt like a gift. Ryan moved out of town after losing his job. My parents sold their own house and relocated to Arizona, muttering about starting fresh where no one knows our business. The Carter family, once so sure of their dominance, had fractured. And me? I thrived. With stable housing and peace of mind, I poured energy into my accounting work, landing new clients for consulting and building a future I controlled. In the evenings, I tended Grandma's roses, which bloomed more beautifully that spring than I'd ever seen. One afternoon, Mrs. Kim stopped by with cookies. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she said, her eyes kind. "She told us often you were the smart one. The strong one." For the first time, I believed it. Standing on that porch, the garden in full bloom around me, I realized something: the house wasn't just bricks and wood. It was proof. Proof that I mattered. Proof that I could choose myself. Proof that Grandma had seen me all along. And every morning when I woke up in her house, every evening when I watered her roses, I whispered the same words. I'm free. Not selfish. Not cruel. Not invisible. Free.